Welcome to the proxy pattern, one of the classic structural patterns from the Gang of Four. Structural patterns are all about how you compose objects and classes to form larger, more flexible structures. The proxy in particular is about controlling how a client reaches an object, and we will see exactly why that matters in just a moment. Imagine you have an object that is expensive to create. Maybe it loads a huge image from disk, or it represents a service running on another machine. If you hand the caller a direct reference, they pay the full cost upfront every time, with no control over who can call what. You want a way to sit between the caller and the real object, handling those concerns transparently, without changing the caller's code at all. Think about visiting a bank. You never walk directly into the vault. A teller acts as your intermediary. The teller checks your identity, records the request, and then fetches your money. From your point of view, the interaction feels the same. You ask, you receive. But behind the scenes, the teller has applied security and logging without you doing anything differently. That is exactly what a proxy does for objects in code. The pattern defines three participants. The subject is an interface or abstract class that both the real object and the proxy implement. Because they share the same interface, the client can use either one without knowing which it has. The real subject is the heavyweight or sensitive object you want to guard. The proxy holds a reference to the real subject and implements the same subject interface, forwarding calls when appropriate, and adding its own logic around those calls. Start at the top. The image interface is the subject. It declares one method, display, and both high-res-image and image proxy will implement it. High-res-image is the real subject. Its constructor immediately logs a disk load, representing real expensive work. Image proxy also implements image, but it stores the file name and sets real image to null, no disk access yet. When the client calls display on the proxy checks whether real image exists. If it does not, it creates high-res image right then, paying the cost exactly once. On every subsequent call, the real instance is already there and is reused. The client only ever references the image interface, so swapping a proxy in for the real thing requires zero changes to client code. At runtime, the client holds a reference typed as the subject interface. It literally cannot tell whether it is talking to a proxy or to the real object. The proxy intercepts every call, runs whatever logic it needs, lazy initialization, a permission check, a cache lookup, and then forwards the call to the real subject when appropriate. The real subject does not change at all. It stays focused on its own job. The cost is one extra object and one extra method dispatch per call, which is almost always negligible compared to the problem being solved. Reach for the proxy when there is a genuine reason to stand between the caller and the real object. The object is costly, sensitive, or remote. If the real object is cheap to build and freely accessible, a proxy just adds a class for no gain. Similarly, if you find yourself wrapping every method in the code base to add logging, a cross-cutting concern like that is better handled by aspect-oriented tooling or a middleware pipeline, not a handwritten proxy per class. To wrap up, a proxy is a stand-in object that shares the real object's interface, so clients never need to change. It sits in front of the real object and controls access, lazily creating it, enforcing permissions, or serving cached results. The real object stays clean and focused. Just remember, the pattern earns its place only when that layer of indirection is solving a real problem, otherwise you are adding complexity for its own sake.